I'm Heather, 34, and I never thought I'd see the day when my own mother would deliberately hurt my 8-year-old daughter. But there I stood watching in stunned silence as Mom served birthday cake to every single person at my nephew Tyler's party, purposely skipping Lily. The look of confusion on my daughter's face quickly morphed into heartbreak as she realized what was happening. When Lily's eyes filled with tears, something inside me snapped. I caught my mother's gaze from across the room, searching for remorse, but found only smug satisfaction. That was the moment everything changed forever. Before I dive into this painful story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to family who crossed the line. Trust me, what happened next will show you exactly why sometimes burning bridges is the only way to protect the ones you truly love. Growing up, I'd always had a complicated relationship with my family. On the surface, we looked like the perfect American household. Sunday dinners, holiday gatherings, birthday celebrations, but underneath ran currents of tension and unspoken resentments. My brother Ryan, 2 years older at 36, had always been the golden child. His wife Jessica was exactly the kind of daughter-in-law my mother Barbara had always wanted. Traditional, agreeable, and most importantly, willing to follow Barbara's lead in all things family-related. Their son Tyler, now 10, had been the center of my mother's universe since the day he was born. Barbara doted on him, showered him with gifts, and made sure everyone knew he was her precious grandson. Don't get me wrong, Tyler was a sweet kid. None of this was his fault. But the contrast in how my mother treated him versus my daughter Lily was impossible to ignore. 2 years ago, when my marriage to David fell apart, Barbara made it clear whose side she was on. Not mine. Marriage is forever, Heather, she'd said coldly when I told her about the divorce. You're just not trying hard enough. She never asked about the emotional neglect I'd endured for years. Never questioned David's frequent business trips that eventually revealed a second family in another state. Never considered that maybe, just maybe, I was making the healthiest choice for myself and Lily by leaving. Since the divorce, Barbara had been subtly undermining my parenting at every opportunity. She'd question my decisions in front of Lily, making comments like, "Your mom doesn't let you have ice cream before dinner. Well, Grandma thinks that's silly." Or, "Your mom is making you go to bed already. Grandma would let you stay up." Each time I confronted her, Barbara would dismiss my concerns with practiced innocence. "You're being too sensitive, Heather. I'm just being a grandmother." The favoritism between Tyler and Lily had become increasingly obvious. Last Christmas, Tyler received a gaming system while Lily got a coloring book. On their shared summer vacation, Barbara took Tyler to an amusement park, while Lily had to stay at the hotel with Jessica because there wasn't room in the car. When I confronted her, Barbara claimed these were just coincidences. When Tyler's birthday invitation arrived, I'd hesitated. My instinct was to protect Lily from more subtle rejections. But Lily had been excited about her cousin's party, had picked out a special Lego set for him, had even made him a card with glitter that still sparkled on our dining room table days later. "Please, Mom, I want to go to Tyler's party," she'd begged, her hazel eyes wide with excitement. How could I say no? How could I explain to an 8-year-old that her grandmother might make her feel unwelcome? So, against my better judgment, I RSVP'd yes, hoping that for once, Barbara would behave herself. Hoping that for once, Lily wouldn't have to feel like she was somehow less than her cousin. I couldn't have been more wrong. Barbara's house was immaculate, as always, when Lily and I arrived for Tyler's birthday party. The pristine white colonial with its perfectly manicured lawn screamed suburban perfection. Inside, everything was equally flawless: blue and green balloons. Tyler's favorite colors floated from every corner, matching streamers twisted across the ceiling, and a professional-looking happy 10th birthday. Tyler's banner hung across the living room archway. "We're here," I called out, helping Lily out of her jacket. She clutched Tyler's gift, the Lego Star Wars set she'd saved her allowance to help buy, against her chest. Aunt Heather, Lily Tyler, came running, his face lit up with genuine joy. Despite everything, Tyler had always been kind to Lily. They were only 2 years apart and had been close since they were toddlers. "Happy birthday, buddy," I said, giving him a hug. "Thanks for coming," he replied, then turned to Lily. "Is that for me?" Lily nodded shyly, handing over the carefully wrapped package. I helped pick it out. As Tyler excitedly tore into the wrapping paper, Barbara appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron that declared "World's Best Grandma" across the front. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Heather, you're late," she said, by way of greeting, checking her watch pointedly, even though we were only 10 minutes past the start time on the invitation. "Traffic was heavy," I replied, refusing to take the bait. "The party looks wonderful, Mom." Barbara's eyes softened slightly at the compliment before she turned to Tyler. "What did they get you, sweetheart?" "Lego Star Wars," Tyler exclaimed, already opening the box. "It's the one I really wanted." "How nice," Barbara said flatly, not acknowledging Lily's contribution. "Why don't you take that upstairs for now? The other guests are in the backyard." As Tyler bounded up the stairs, Barbara finally turned to Lily. "Hello, Lily," she said, her voice noticeably cooler. No hug, no kiss. Just a quick assessing glance before she turned back to me. "There's food in the backyard. Help yourself." Throughout the afternoon, I watched Barbara flit from guest to guest, warm and engaging with everyone except Lily and me. She made sure to tell everyone within earshot about how Ryan had just been promoted at work, how Jessica had won the neighborhood garden competition, how Tyler had made the honor roll. Not once did she mention that Lily had recently won her school's spelling bee, or had been selected for a special art program. Ryan and Jessica seemed oblivious to the tension, too caught up in hosting duties and socializing with friends and extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in months milled around many, giving me awkward greetings that told me Barbara had been busy sharing her version of my life's events. "How are you holding up, my uncle?" Frank asked, his voice lowered, as if discussing a terminal illness rather than a 2-year-old divorce. "I'm great, actually," I replied firmly. "Lily and I are doing really well." He looked surprised, then confused, clearly having expected a different answer. Before he could respond, Barbara's voice rang out across the yard. "Everyone, it's time for cake." We all gathered around the patio table where an elaborate 3-tier cake decorated with superheroes stood. Tyler sat at the head of the table, beaming as everyone sang "Happy Birthday." Barbara stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder, the picture of the doting grandmother. When the song ended and the cheering died down, Barbara began serving the cake. She started with Tyler, then Ryan, and Jessica then moved methodically through the assembled guests. I watched as she handed out slice after slice, greeting each person with a smile and a personal comment. When she reached where Lily and I were standing, she looked right at me, handed me a slice with a tight smile, then deliberately turned away, moving on to my cousin Amy, who was standing on the other side. Lily looked up at me, confusion in her eyes. "Grandma didn't give me any cake," she whispered. "I'm sure she just missed you by accident," I said, though I didn't believe it for a second. "We'll get you a piece in a minute." But as Barbara finished serving everyone else, it became painfully clear this had been no oversight. Every single person at the party, more than 20 people, had a slice of cake except Lily. "Mom," I said, approaching her by the table, where she was now cutting a second slice for Tyler. "You forgot to give Lily a piece of cake." Barbara looked up, her expression a mask of innocence. "Oh, did I? It must have been an oversight." But her eyes told a different story. There was a glint of something there, satisfaction, even triumph, that made my blood boil. "Could she have a piece now, please?" I asked, keeping my voice level for Lily's sake. "Of course," Barbara replied, cutting a sliver of cake, noticeably smaller than everyone else's portion, and placing it on a plate. Instead of handing it to Lily, she held it out to me. "Here you go." I took the plate, fighting to keep my composure. Thank you. I managed turning to give the cake to Lily, whose eyes were now brimming with tears. Is Grandma mad at me? She whispered as we walked away from the table. Before I could answer, Ryan appeared beside us. Is there a problem? He asked, his tone suggesting that if there was, it must be my fault. Mom deliberately skipped Lily when serving cake, I said quietly. Ryan rolled his eyes. Come on, Heather. It was obviously just an oversight. Don't make a scene. It wasn't an oversight, Ryan. She looked right at us and moved on. You're being paranoid, he hissed. Mom would never do that. Jessica appeared then, her perpetual smile firmly in place. Everything okay over here. Heather thinks Mom intentionally didn't give Lily cake, Ryan told her. Jessica's smile faltered slightly. I'm sure it was just a mix-up with so many people here, she said diplomatically. Lily has cake now, right? So everything's fine. I looked down at Lily, who was pushing her tiny slice of cake around her plate, no longer interested in eating it. Everything was not fine, not even close. We're leaving, I said abruptly. What? Don't be ridiculous, Ryan protested. The party's not over. Tyler hasn't even opened his presents from everyone else. I'm sorry, we'll miss it, I replied, taking Lily's hand. Please tell Tyler we said goodbye and happy birthday. I gathered our things quickly, ignoring the stares from relatives and friends. As we headed for the door, Barbara intercepted us. Leaving so soon, she asked, her voice saccharine sweet for the benefit of nearby guests. Yes, I said simply. Goodbye, Mom. As Lily and I walked to the car, I could feel the weight of 20 pairs of eyes on our backs. I helped Lily into her booster seat, shut her door, then sat in the driver's seat for a moment, hands gripping the wheel as I tried to steady my breathing. Mom Lily's small voice came from the back seat. Why doesn't Grandma like me? And that's when I knew, really knew, that something had to change. Lily cried the whole way home. Not the dramatic wailing of a typical 8-year-old tantrum, but quiet, confused tears that broke my heart with each sniffle. I kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, watching her wipe her eyes with the sleeve of her party dress, the special one she'd insisted on wearing because Tyler said blue is his favorite color. Sweetheart, I said gently as we pulled into our driveway. What happened today wasn't your fault. Not at all. Then why did Grandma forget to give me cake? Lily asked, her voice small. Did I do something bad? I turned off the engine and climbed into the back seat beside her, unbuckling her seatbelt so I could pull her into a hug. No, baby. You didn't do anything bad. Grandma. I paused, unsure how to explain adult pettiness to a child. Grandma was being unkind. And that's on her, not you. As I held my daughter, memories flooded back. Barbara accidentally leaving Lily's Christmas present at home last year. Barbara telling Lily her drawing needed more work while praising Tyler's nearly identical one. Barbara always finding reasons why Lily couldn't sit on her lap while Tyler practically lived there. All the little incidents I'd written off as misunderstandings or coincidences suddenly formed a clear pattern of deliberate exclusion. Inside the house, I ran Lily a bubble bath, her favorite comfort activity, and let her soak until her fingers pruned and her tears had dried. Afterward, we curled up on the couch with ice cream and a Disney movie, a Friday night tradition since the divorce. As the familiar characters sang on screen, Lily grew quiet, thoughtful. Mom, she finally said during a lull in the movie. Can I tell you something? Of course, sweetheart. Anything. Lily set her ice cream bowl aside. Sometimes when you're not around, Grandma says things. My stomach clenched. What kinds of things? She says you took me away from Daddy because you're selfish. She says you're not a good mom like Aunt Jessica. Lily's voice trembled. She told Tyler that's why he gets more presents, because his mom knows how to keep a family together. I felt physically ill. All this time, Barbara had been poisoning Lily against me, her own mother. And I'd been delivering my daughter right into her hands, thinking I was maintaining family connections. Lily, why didn't you tell me this before? She shrugged, eyes downcast. Grandma said it was our secret, that you'd get mad and stop letting me see Tyler if I told. I stayed up long after Lily went to bed, pacing the living room, fury and heartbreak warring inside me. Around midnight, my phone rang. Ryan's number flashing on the screen. How dare you embarrass Mom like that, he demanded without preamble. Leaving in the middle of Tyler's party. Do you know how upset she is? How upset she is, I shot back. Ryan, she deliberately humiliated my 8-year-old daughter in front of our entire family. It was an accident, Heather. God, you've always been so dramatic. Mom forgot one piece of cake in a busy party. It happens. It wasn't just the cake, Ryan. It's been building for years. The way she treats Lily compared to Tyler. Oh, here we go again with your jealousy issues, he interrupted. Just because Tyler gets more attention sometimes doesn't mean Mom loves Lily any less. Lily just told me Mom has been bad-mouthing me to her behind my back. I said, my voice shaking with rage, telling her I'm a bad mother, that I destroyed our family. There was a brief pause before Ryan responded, his voice colder than before. Well, aren't you? You're the one who threw away your marriage. You're the one who's turning Lily against her grandmother with these accusations. I nearly dropped the phone. You think I'm making this up? I think you need to apologize to Mom, Ryan stated flatly. She's expecting your call tomorrow. And you need to bring Lily over to make up for ruining Tyler's special day. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone still in hand, feeling more alone than I had in years. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I called my best friend Rachel. He said, "What?" Rachel exclaimed after I recounted the day's events and Ryan's call. Heather, that's gaslighting, pure and simple. Am I overreacting? I asked, the seed of doubt my family had planted beginning to sprout. Was it just an oversight? Stop it, Rachel said firmly. You know it wasn't. Trust your instincts. Your mother deliberately excluded your daughter, and when confronted, she made it seem like you were crazy for noticing. Classic manipulation. What do I do? Rachel's voice softened. You protect Lily. Whatever that takes. After we hung up, I sat in the stillness of my bedroom, Rachel's words echoing in my mind. Protect Lily, whatever that takes. By morning, I knew what I had to do. No more brushing things under the rug. No more making excuses for inexcusable behavior. No more exposing Lily to people who would hurt her, even if those people were family. Especially if those people were family. When Ryan called again the next morning, demanding to know when I'd be apologizing to our mother, I was ready. I'm not apologizing, Ryan, I said calmly. And neither is Lily. In fact, until Mom acknowledges what she did and makes a genuine apology to Lily, we won't be seeing her at all. You can't be serious, he sputtered. You'd cut Mom off over a piece of cake. No, Ryan. I'm cutting her off for systematically trying to hurt and alienate my daughter, for attempting to turn Lily against me, for putting her own petty resentments above the well-being of an innocent child. You'll regret this, he warned. Mom won't stand for it. I'm counting on that, I replied and ended the call. 3 days after Tyler's birthday party, I sat in Meadowlark Cafe, my hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long since gone cold. I'd chosen this place deliberately, public enough that Barbara would be forced to control herself, but quiet enough for a serious conversation. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, catching on the copper fixtures and giving everything a warm glow that belied the chill I felt inside. Barbara arrived 15 minutes late. Another power play. I watched her scan the cafe, eyes narrowing when she spotted me in the corner booth. She wore a pale blue cardigan and pearl earrings, the very picture of a respectable suburban grandmother. You're looking thin, she said, as she slid into the seat across from me. Not taking care of yourself. I ignored the jab. Thank you for meeting me, Mom. Well, when my daughter calls for an emergency meeting, what choice do I have? She signaled the waitress. Earl Grey, please. And a fresh coffee for my daughter. Hers looks cold. The waitress nodded and departed, leaving us in momentary silence. I think we both know why I asked you here, I began. Barbara adjusted her napkin precisely in her lap. You want to apologize for your behavior at Tyler's party, I assume. I took a deep breath. No, Mom. I want to talk about your behavior, about the way you've been treating Lily. I don't know what you're talking about, she replied, her face a mask of innocent confusion. I adore Lily. You deliberately didn't give her cake at the party. You looked right at us and skipped her. Barbara's expression hardened slightly before smoothing back into practiced concern. Heather, I've told you it was an oversight. There were 20 people there. It's easy to miss one. It wasn't just the cake, Mom. It's been going on for years. The different gifts, the different treatment, the things you say to her when I'm not around. Barbara's eyes widened fractionally. The only indication that my last statement had hit home. What exactly are you accusing me of? Lily told me everything I said, watching her carefully. About how you tell her I'm a bad mother. How you blame me for the divorce. How you tell her that's why she gets less than Tyler. A flash of something, anger, panic, crossed Barbara's face before she composed herself. Children misinterpret things, she said dismissively. I might have mentioned that divorce is hard on families, but I would never say such things. You've been undermining me to my own daughter. I pressed on my voice level despite the anger building inside me. You've been trying to punish me through her. Barbara's eyes suddenly welled with tears, a tactic I'd seen her employ countless times when cornered. How can you say such horrible things to me? After everything I've done for you and Lily, I've been nothing but supportive since your divorce. That's not true, and you know it. This is so unfair, she continued, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. I made one mistake. One. At a busy birthday party, and you're treating me like some kind of monster. This isn't about the cake, Mom. It's about a pattern of behavior. Barbara's tears vanished as quickly as they'd appeared. The only pattern I see is you looking for reasons to blame others for your problems. First, David, now me. David cheated on me, Mom. That wasn't my problem. It was his choice. If you had been more attentive. Stop. I cut her off, feeling my composure start to crack. We're not here to rehash my marriage. We're here to talk about how you treat Lily. Barbara pulled out her phone. I think we need some perspective here. I'm calling Ryan. Before I could object, she was dialing. Ryan, darling, I need you to come to Meadowlark Cafe. Your sister is making some very disturbing accusations. She listened for a moment. Yes, right now, please. She set her phone down with a satisfied smile. Ryan will be here in 10 minutes. He can help us sort this out. We sat in tense silence until Ryan arrived, looking every bit the successful corporate executive in his tailored suit and carefully styled hair. He slid in beside Barbara, his expression grim. What's going on, he asked, though his tone suggested he'd already decided who was at fault. Heather is claiming I've been deliberately mistreating Lily, Barbara said, her voice quivering slightly. That I'm saying terrible things to her behind Heather's back. Ryan turned to me, eyes narrowed. Seriously, Heather, this again. Lily told me herself, Ryan. Mom has been telling her I'm a bad mother, that I destroyed our family. That's why she gets less than Tyler. Kids make things up all the time, Ryan dismissed. Tyler once told us Jessica and I were getting divorced because we had an argument about taking out the trash. This isn't a child's misunderstanding, I insisted. It's been consistent and deliberate. You know, Barbara interjected, ever since your divorce, you've been looking for people to blame. I'm worried about you, Heather. This paranoia isn't healthy. Paranoia, I repeated, incredulous. You think I'm imagining the way you treat Lily. I think Ryan said carefully that you're still angry about your failed marriage and you're projecting those feelings onto Mom. I stared at my brother stunned. You really believe that? What I believe, Ryan continued, is that Mom has been nothing but supportive. She watched Lily twice a week while you got back on your feet after the divorce. She's included you both in every family gathering, despite how awkward it's been. Awkward for whom I demanded. For everyone, Ryan exclaimed. Your bitterness is obvious every time you walk into a room. Mom's been trying to maintain family harmony despite it all. I realized then what I should have seen years ago. Barbara hadn't just been feeding Lily a false narrative. She'd been feeding one to Ryan too. For years. Maybe decades. Ryan, I said slowly, have you ever considered that Mom might not be telling you the whole truth? That maybe her version of events isn't accurate? Barbara's hand shot out to grasp Ryan's arm. You see how she twists things. Now I'm a liar too. Ryan patted her hand. It's okay, Mom. I know you would never hurt Lily. But she did, I insisted. And she's going to keep doing it unless something changes. The only thing that needs to change is your attitude, Ryan stated flatly. Mom has been nothing but loving to Lily. If there's any distance there, it's because you've been poisoning Lily against her grandmother. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. You have it completely backward. I think Barbara said, her voice suddenly steely, that if you continue with these accusations, you're going to find yourself very alone, Heather. The family won't stand for it. Is that a threat? I asked, though I knew the answer. It's a prediction, she replied. People get tired of drama. They distance themselves from the source. I looked from my mother to my brother, seeing the united front they presented. There would be no getting through to either of them today. I need to go, I said, gathering my purse. Running away again, Ryan taunted. Just like you ran from your marriage instead of working on it, I stood my legs surprisingly steady despite the emotional earthquake I felt inside. I'm not running, Ryan. I'm walking away. There's a difference. As I headed toward the door, I heard Barbara's voice behind me. She'll be back when she needs something. She always is. But for the first time in my life, I knew that wasn't true. I wasn't coming back. Not until something fundamentally changed. And I would no longer expose Lily to Barbara's toxic behavior, no matter what it cost me. The fallout was swift and brutal. Within days, my phone was flooded with texts and calls from extended family members, each one more accusatory than the last. How could you attack your poor mother like that? After everything she's done for you and Lily, you need to apologize before this gets any worse. Barbara had wasted no time launching her smear campaign, painting herself as the victim of a vindictive, unstable daughter. According to family gossip that quickly made its way back to me, I was unhinged from my divorce, paranoid and possibly suffering from some kind of breakdown that was making me imagine slights against Lily. I declined to engage, responding to most messages with a simple, "I appreciate your concern, but this is between my mother and me." This only seemed to confirm their suspicions that I was being unreasonable. The real surprise came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang, displaying a number I hadn't seen in years. My Aunt Susan, my mother's older sister. "Heather, it's your Aunt Susan. Do you have a minute to talk?" Susan had been a peripheral figure in our family for as long as I could remember. She and Barbara had what my mother always described as a complicated relationship, which meant they barely spoke except at major family gatherings. I hadn't seen Susan since my wedding 7 years ago. "Of course," I replied, curious. "How are you?" "I'm calling about what happened with your mother," she said without preamble. Barbara called me, trying to recruit me to her side of this family drama. She told me her version of events, but something didn't sound right. I braced myself for more criticism. "I believe you, Heather." I nearly dropped the phone. "You do?" "Barbara has always been." Susan paused, searching for the right word. "Selective with affection. She uses it as currency giving and withholding to control people. She did it with me when we were young. She did it with your father. Now she's doing it with Lily." Tears sprang to my eyes at this unexpected validation. No one else seems to see it. Ryan never will, Susan said gently. He's been her golden child since the day he was born. She spent his entire life making sure he sees her exactly as she wants to be seen. I don't know what to do, I admitted. She's turning everyone against me. That's her specialty, Susan replied, a hint of bitterness in her voice. Listen, Barbara called me because she's running out of allies. She's contacted everyone else already. I'm guessing the family is mostly siding with her, almost universally. That's because they're afraid of being next, Susan explained. Barbara has dirt on everyone, and they know it. It's easier to gang up on you than risk her turning on them. We talked for over an hour. Susan filled in gaps in my understanding of our family dynamics, sharing stories of Barbara's manipulative behavior dating back to childhood. It was both validating and heartbreaking to learn that what I was experiencing wasn't new. It was just my turn to be the target. I want you to know you're not alone in this, Susan said as our conversation wound down. I've been where you are. I'll support you however I can. I hung up feeling stronger than I had in days. With Susan's support and Rachel's unwavering friendship, I no longer felt quite so isolated. But the war was just beginning. Later that evening, my phone pinged with a text from Jessica, my sister-in-law. Barbara is organizing a family meeting at her house this Sunday to discuss the situation. She specifically said you're not invited. I thought you should know. I thanked Jessica for the heads-up, surprised by her reaching out. She'd always seemed so firmly in Barbara and Ryan's camp. Is Tyler doing okay with all this? I asked, concerned about my nephew being caught in the middle. He misses Lily, Jessica replied after a brief delay. This is hard on the kids. I agreed, and thanked her again, wondering if there might be cracks forming in my brother's unified front with our mother. My concern shifted to what exactly Barbara might be planning. A family meeting without me present could only mean one thing: more character assassination. But why formalize it? What was her endgame? I got my answer the next morning, when Rachel called, her voice tight with concern. I just got off the phone with my cousin Megan. You remember her. She's a family lawyer. She mentioned something I think you need to know about. What is it? I asked, a sense of foreboding building. She's had several cases recently involving grandparents' rights. Apparently, it's becoming more common for grandparents to sue for legal visitation rights when they're cut off from their grandchildren. Heather, if your mother feels threatened enough, the implication hung in the air between us. Barbara might actually take legal action to force access to Lily. She wouldn't, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew better. Of course she would. It was the perfect way to reassert control while playing the victim. I spent that afternoon researching grandparents' rights in our state, growing increasingly alarmed. While such cases weren't usually successful when a fit parent opposed them, they could still be filed, dragging the family through costly and traumatic legal proceedings. The next day, I made an appointment with Marion White, a family attorney Rachel recommended. Marion listened intently as I laid out the situation, taking careful notes. Based on what you've told me, she said when I finished, your mother would have a very weak case for grandparents' rights. You're clearly a fit parent, and you have legitimate concerns about her behavior toward Lily. So she couldn't win? I asked. It's unlikely, Marion confirmed. But that doesn't mean she can't make the process difficult. My advice is to start documenting everything, every incident of favoritism, every inappropriate comment, every manipulation. Dates, times, witnesses if possible. If she does file, we'll be prepared. Armed with this advice, I created a detailed log of every incident I could remember, starting with the birthday party and working backward. The pattern laid out chronologically was even more disturbing than I'd realized. 2 weeks after Tyler's birthday party, the annual family barbecue was scheduled at my cousin Mark's house. Despite everything, I decided to attend with Lily. I needed to show the family I wasn't the irrational one, that I was willing to be civil for Lily's sake. It was a mistake. From the moment we arrived, it was clear that Barbara had been busy. Family members who had always been warm to us were now coolly polite or outright distant. Conversations stopped when we approached. My cousins, once close, confidants made excuses to move away when I tried to engage them. Most heartbreaking was watching Lily being excluded by the other children. Tyler still made efforts to include her, but the other cousins had clearly been influenced by their parents' attitudes. When I found Lily sitting alone at the edge of the yard while the other kids played tag, it took everything in me not to pack up and leave immediately. "Why is everyone being weird?" Mom Lily asked as we got drinks from the cooler. "Sometimes families go through rough patches," I said, trying to shield her from the ugly truth. "It's not about you, sweetie." I was making a plate of food for Lily when Ryan approached, his expression thunderous. "You've got some nerve showing up here," he said in a low voice. "It's a family barbecue, Ryan. We're family. After what you've been saying about Mom, after accusing her of abusing Lily," I never used the word abuse, I corrected him, though in truth I had been thinking it. "You implied it," he snapped. "And now you're parading Lily around like nothing happened." "I'm here because Lily deserves to see her family," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Despite everything, I don't want to cut her off from people who love her. If you really believed that, you wouldn't be spreading lies about Mom. They're not lies, Ryan. I wish they were." His face flushed with anger. "You need to fix this, Heather. Mom is devastated. She can barely sleep. Is that what you want, to torture an elderly woman?" I almost laughed at the description of our 60-year-old tennis-playing social butterfly mother as a frail elder. "What I want is for Mom to acknowledge her behavior and change it. The only one who needs to change is you," Ryan hissed, grabbing my arm as I turned to walk away. "This ends now. You will apologize to Mom and stop this nonsense, or would I pulled my arm free? You'll cut me off, too late. The family already has. You have no idea what Mom is capable of when she's pushed," Ryan warned. "Actually, I think I'm finally starting to understand exactly what she's capable of." As I walked away, I could feel Ryan's glare boring into my back. I found Lily told her we needed to leave and ignored her protests about not having played with Tyler yet. Sometimes protection meant disappointment. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror to see Barbara watching from the porch, a satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She thought she'd won this round. She was wrong. The call from Lily's school came on a Wednesday afternoon while I was in the middle of a work presentation. Seeing the school's number flash on my phone, I excused myself immediately. "Miss Adams, this is Valerie from the front office at Oak Ridge Elementary. There's been a situation with Lily that requires your immediate attention." My heart dropped. "Is she hurt?" No, she's fine," Valerie assured me. "But your mother came to the school about 20 minutes ago attempting to pick Lily up. When we explained that she's not on the authorized pickup list, she became insistent. Our principal is speaking with her now, but we thought you should be aware." I felt like I'd been doused with ice water. "I'll be right there." I arrived at the school in record time to find Barbara seated in the principal's office, playing the role of confused grandmother to perfection. "Heather, thank goodness," she exclaimed when I entered. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding." Principal Martinez looked relieved to see me. "Miss Adams, your mother was trying to pick up Lily for what she described as a special grandmother outing. Without my knowledge or permission," I added. Barbara waved a dismissive hand. "I was just trying to surprise both of you. I thought I'd take Lily for ice cream and have her home before you even got off work. Mom, you know you're not authorized to pick up Lily." Since when Barbara's voice took on an edge. "I've picked her up dozens of times. Before the divorce, when you were on the approved list, I clarified for Principal Martinez's benefit. You haven't been authorized since then, and you know it." Barbara's eyes narrowed slightly before she plastered on a hurt expression. I had no idea. I'm just trying to be a good grandmother. To maintain a relationship despite everything. The implication was clear, despite my unreasonableness. I could see Principal Martinez's sympathetic glance toward Barbara and knew exactly how this looked overprotective divorced mother, keeping loving grandmother from her grandchild. I appreciate your vigilance in following protocol, I told Principal Martinez. No one should be able to take Lily without proper authorization. After signing a form confirming the incident, I escorted Barbara out to the parking lot. What were you thinking? I demanded once we were out of earshot. You know you can't just take Lily without my permission. I'm her grandmother, Barbara stated, as if that trumped all other considerations. I have rights. Not to remove her from school without authorization, you don't. Barbara's facade slipped for a moment, revealing the cold calculation beneath. We'll see about that. The next day, I met with Principal Martinez and the school counselor to update Lily's file with explicit instructions. Barbara Adams was not to have any contact with Lily at school, and any attempts should be reported to me immediately. I also provided them with contact information for my attorney just in case. The school pickup incident was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Barbara escalated her campaign with frightening creativity. First came the gifts, expensive toys and clothes, delivered directly to our house, each with a note for Lily Grandma. Misses you so much. Grandma loves you more than anyone. Grandma would never abandon you like others have. I intercepted most of them but one, a custom stuffed animal that looked like our old family dog. Made it into Lily's hands before I could check it. The note inside read, "Remember when we were all happy together before Mommy ruined everything? We could be that happy again if she would stop being so mean." When gifts didn't work, Barbara tried a more direct approach. One evening, I opened our mailbox to find a formal-looking envelope addressed to me. Inside was a printout of information about grandparents' rights in our state, with certain passages highlighted and a handwritten note. This doesn't have to get messy. But the true low point came on a rainy Tuesday morning when I answered a knock at the door to find a Child Protective Services investigator standing on my porch. "Miss Adams, I'm Denise Wilson from CPS. We've received a report concerning your daughter Lily. I need to ask you some questions and speak with Lily if she's home." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "A report? What kind of report?" "The specifics are confidential," Miss Wilson replied professionally, "but it involves allegations of emotional neglect and parental alienation." Barbara. It had to be Barbara. The investigation was thorough and humiliating. Miss Wilson inspected our home, examined Lily's bedroom, asked about our routines, our relationships, my disciplinary methods. She interviewed Lily separately, though I was allowed to be in the room. Watching my 8-year-old daughter answer questions about whether she felt safe, whether she had enough to eat, whether I ever said bad things about her grandmother, it was almost unbearable. The investigator was kind but thorough, and by the end of the 2-hour visit, she seemed satisfied that the allegations were unfounded. "We have to follow up on every report," she explained as she prepared to leave. "Based on what I've seen today, I don't have any concerns about Lily's care. You'll receive an official letter within 10 business days." "Can you tell me who made the report?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Reports are confidential," Miss Wilson repeated. "But I can tell you that they often come from family members during custody or visitation disputes." After she left, I collapsed on the couch, shaking with a mixture of relief and rage. Barbara had crossed a line I never imagined she would. She had weaponized the child welfare system in her vendetta against me. The strain was taking its toll on Lily, too. She began having nightmares, waking in tears 2 or 3 times a week. She grew anxious about going to school, worried that Grandma might come again. Her teacher reported that she was withdrawing in class, less engaged, more prone to staring out the window than participating. I think Lily would benefit from talking to someone the school counselor suggested during our next conference. These family dynamics are clearly affecting her emotional well-being. Following her recommendation, I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Claire Peterson, a child psychologist specializing in family trauma. Over several sessions, Dr. Peterson helped me understand that what we were experiencing had a name: narcissistic family system. In these family dynamics, she explained during one of our parent consultations, there's typically a narcissistic figure at the center, in your case, your mother, who demands complete loyalty and control. Anyone who challenges that control becomes the problem person, the scapegoat. That would be me, I said ruefully. Yes. And what's particularly insidious is how the narcissist recruits others, like your brother, to reinforce their version of reality. It's called triangulation. So I'm not crazy, I said, half joking, half desperate for confirmation. Dr. Peterson's expression was serious. Not at all. What you're describing is a textbook pattern of emotional manipulation and abuse. The birthday cake incident wasn't about cake. It was a power play, a public demonstration that your mother could hurt Lily and by extension you whenever she wanted. As Lily continued her therapy, my phone continued to fill with hostile messages. Ryan left particularly vicious voicemails, his tone escalating from irritation to outright threats. You need to fix this situation before it gets worse, his latest message warned. Mom is prepared to take this as far as it needs to go. Don't test her. Even everyday errands became battlegrounds. Twice, Barbara accidentally ran into us at local stores, creating scenes where she played the role of heartbroken grandmother, while onlookers gave me judgmental looks. Lily, oh my sweet girl, she'd exclaim dramatically in the middle of the grocery store, rushing toward us with open arms. I've missed you so much. Why won't your mommy let me see you? The second time this happened, I grabbed Lily's hand and headed for the exit, abandoning our half-filled cart. Ma'am, is everything okay? The store manager asked, intercepting us near the door. That woman is harassing us, I said, nodding toward Barbara, who was now dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. She's been specifically asked not to approach my daughter. The manager, a woman in her 50s, looked from me to Barbara with uncertainty. She's my mother, I explained, lowering my voice. There's a family situation. We need to leave. The manager nodded, escorting us to our car while Barbara continued her performance inside. It was a small kindness that nearly brought me to tears. That night, after putting Lily to bed, I made the mistake of checking social media. Barbara had been busy there too, posting vague but pointed statements about the pain of being separated from those you love most and praying for healing in broken families. Her friends and our relatives filled the comments with supportive messages, many directly mentioning me by name. Heather needs to get over herself and stop punishing you for her failed marriage. Some people just can't accept responsibility for their own mistakes. Praying Heather comes to her senses and stops using Lily as a pawn. I closed the app feeling sick. The narrative Barbara had created was taking on a life of its own, spreading through our community like a virus. People who hadn't even heard my side were convinced I was the villain in this story. But as I checked on Lily one last time before bed, watching her peaceful face in the soft glow of her nightlight, I knew I couldn't back down. No matter what Barbara did, no matter how hard she pushed or how many people she turned against me protecting Lily, was worth it. The question was, how much worse would things get before they got better? The lowest point came on a gray Tuesday morning in November. After a particularly rough night with Lily, who'd woken screaming from yet another nightmare, I dragged myself to work looking as exhausted as I felt. My boss, Karen, called me into her office just before lunch. Heather, I received a concerning phone call this morning. She began her expression carefully neutral. From your mother. I froze. My mother called you. Karen nodded. She introduced herself as Barbara Adams, your mother, and expressed concerns about your mental state affecting your work performance. She mentioned a recent divorce custody issues and suggested you might be having some kind of breakdown. I stared at Karen in disbelief. Barbara had actually contacted my workplace. The invasion felt so profound I could barely process it. Heather, I've known you for 6 years, Karen continued. You're one of our most reliable employees. Whatever is happening in your personal life hasn't affected your work that I can see, but I needed to address this with you directly. I appreciate that I managed to say, my mother and I are estranged. For good reason. This call was completely inappropriate and frankly part of an ongoing pattern of harassment. To my surprise, Karen nodded knowingly. I suspected as much. The call felt off, too concerned on the surface, but somehow eager underneath. When she started suggesting we might want to consider your position here, it raised red flags. She suggested you fire me. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Not in so many words, but the implication was clear. Karen's expression softened. Heather, I don't know the details of your family situation, and you don't have to share them. But if you need support, time off flexible scheduling, our employee assistance program, please let me know. I left Karen's office in a daze. Barbara had actually tried to jeopardize my livelihood. She was willing to risk Lily's security and stability, because without my job, how would I provide for her? Just to punish me for setting boundaries. That night, after Lily was asleep, I called Rachel in tears. She's trying to destroy me, I sobbed. My job, my reputation, my relationship with Lily, she won't stop until she's taken everything. Heather, Rachel's voice was firm. You need to stop reacting and start acting. You've been playing defense this whole time, just trying to weather each new attack. It's time to get ahead of this. How? She's relentless. By understanding what you're dealing with, Rachel replied. I've been doing some reading since this started. Your mother's behavior, it follows patterns, predictable ones. If you know what's coming next, you can prepare. That conversation marked a turning point. With Rachel's encouragement, I began researching narcissistic personality patterns, emotional manipulation tactics, and estrangement. I joined online support groups for adult children of narcissistic parents. I read books on setting boundaries and protecting children from toxic family dynamics. Knowledge was power, but it wasn't enough. I needed a comprehensive plan. First, I implemented strict no-contact rules. I blocked Barbara and Ryan on my phone and all social media platforms. I set up email filters to send their messages directly to a folder I could check when I was emotionally prepared rather than being ambushed. Next came physical security. I installed a video doorbell and security cameras around our house, something I'd been putting off due to the expense but now seemed necessary. I changed our locks just in case Barbara had somehow obtained a key. I spoke with our neighbors explaining in simple terms that my mother was not permitted to pick up Lily under any circumstances without going into the messy details. At work, Karen helped me create a protocol for handling any future contact from Barbara. The front desk was given clear instructions not to put through her calls and to document any attempts. HR was briefed on the situation in case Barbara tried to escalate to higher management. For Lily, Dr. Peterson helped me develop age-appropriate language to explain what was happening. We didn't demonize Barbara or Ryan. That would only confuse and hurt Lily more. But we made it clear that Grandma's behavior had been unkind, and we needed some time apart until she could learn to be respectful. The most difficult step was legal. After the CPS incident, I knew I needed formal protection. I consulted again with Marion White, who helped me draft a cease and desist letter to Barbara and Ryan formally documenting my request for no contact and warning of legal consequences if the harassment continued. This isn't a restraining order, Marion explained. It doesn't have legal teeth in itself, but it establishes a paper trail if we need to pursue more serious legal action later. As these protective measures took shape, something unexpected happened. I began to feel stronger. Each step, each decision, each boundary set made me more confident in my ability to protect Lily and myself. Lily's therapy continued to show results too. The nightmares became less frequent. She started talking more about school and friends, less about grandma and the family drama. Dr. Peterson reported that Lily was developing healthier coping mechanisms and a stronger sense of security. "You're doing the right thing," Dr. Peterson assured me during one session. "Children are resilient, but they need consistency and safety. You're providing that even when it's incredibly difficult." Another unexpected development came in the form of my Aunt Susan, who had become an invaluable ally. During one of our regular phone calls, she shared information about our family that put everything in a new light. "Did you know your father didn't just leave Susan?" asked one evening. "Barbara drove him away, much like she's trying to do with you now." "What do you mean Dad left when I was 19? "Mom always said he had a midlife crisis, ran off with his secretary." Susan sighed heavily. "There was no secretary, Heather. Your father left because Barbara's control and manipulation became unbearable. She alienated his friends, sabotaged his job opportunities if they didn't align with her plans, undermined his relationship with you and Ryan." "But Dad never fought for custody," I said, still processing this revelation. "He barely stayed in touch. Barbara threatened to make it hell for all of you if he tried. He believed stepping away was the kindest thing he could do." Susan paused. "I'm not saying it was right, but he wasn't the villain Barbara painted him to be." This conversation led to perhaps the most healing development of all. I reached out to my father, Michael, for the first time in 15 years. Our first phone call was awkward, emotional, and revelatory. He confirmed everything Susan had told me and more, painting a picture of my childhood that was dramatically different from the narrative Barbara had crafted. "I've regretted leaving you with her every day since," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I convinced myself you were better off without the conflict, but I've often wondered if that was just cowardice disguised as concern." "You couldn't have known she would do the same to me," I said, surprising myself with the forgiveness I felt. "I should have fought harder," he insisted, "when Susan told me what was happening with you and Lily. Heather, I don't want to overstep, but I'd like to help if I can." And just like that, another ally emerged from the wreckage of Barbara's manipulation. My father, living just 3 hours away in a neighboring state, tentatively re-entered our lives. First through phone calls, then video chats with Lily, and finally a cautious in-person meeting at a park halfway between our homes. Watching Lily get to know her grandfather, seeing the genuine joy on his face as he pushed her on the swings, I felt a bittersweet ache. Barbara had robbed us of this relationship for years. How many other connections had her toxicity destroyed? As our protective measures took hold, Barbara's direct attacks became less frequent but more desperate. The final escalation came after she received the cease and desist letter. The cease and desist letter had been delivered by certified mail on a Thursday. By Saturday evening, the relative calm I'd been cautiously enjoying shattered with the sound of angry pounding on my front door. Lily, who'd been helping me make cookies, froze at the sound. "Who's that, Mom?" "Stay in the kitchen, sweetheart," I said, my heart racing as I checked the security camera feed on my phone. Barbara and Ryan stood on my porch, Barbara's face contorted with rage as she pounded again. "I know you're in there, Heather," she shouted. "Open this door right now." I took a deep breath and pressed the intercom button. "Mom, Ryan, you need to leave. You've been asked not to contact us. Don't you dare hide behind that ridiculous letter," Barbara spat. "I am your mother. You don't get to cease and desist me from my own granddaughter's life." Ryan's voice joined in. "Heather, this has gone far enough. Come out and talk to us like an adult. I glanced back toward the kitchen where Lily had appeared in the doorway, flower still on her hands, her eyes wide with fear. Go back in the kitchen, Lily, I said gently. Everything's okay. Turning back to the intercom, I kept my voice level. I'm not discussing this. Please leave or I'll have to call the police. You wouldn't dare, Barbara hissed. You have 3 minutes to leave my property, I replied, then shut off the intercom. I guided Lily back to the kitchen, turned on some music to drown out the continued shouting from outside, and tried to redirect her attention to our baking. But my hands were shaking as I dialed 911 reporting trespassers who were refusing to leave. On the security feed, I watched as Barbara's performance escalated. She was crying now, collapsing dramatically against Ryan, as if her grief had physically weakened her. Ryan alternated between supporting her and approaching the door for another round of pounding and shouting. When the police finally arrived 15 minutes later, Barbara instantly transformed. She straightened up, wiped her tears, and approached the officers with dignified composure. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could imagine it. Poor elderly mother just trying to see her beloved granddaughter. Unstable daughter keeping them apart for no good reason. I braced myself for the police to side with Barbara. It had happened to others in my support group. But then something unexpected happened. One of the officers pointed to my security camera. Barbara followed his gesture, her expression changing as she realized their entire performance had been recorded. The officer appeared to be explaining something. Likely that regardless of family dynamics, they were trespassing after being asked to leave private property. Ryan's body language shifted, less aggressive, more uncertain. He glanced from Barbara to the camera to the officers. For the first time, he seemed to be questioning the situation. After a few more minutes of conversation, Barbara and Ryan returned to their car. The officers approached my door and I opened it cautiously. Ma'am, they're leaving now, the older officer said. They understand they're not welcome here without your permission. Thank you, I said, relief washing over me. I have a cease and desist letter that was delivered to them Thursday asking for no contact. This is part of an ongoing situation. The officer nodded. We've documented today's incident. If they return, call us immediately. After the police left, I returned to the kitchen where Lily sat at the table, absently poking at cookie dough. Was that Grandma and Uncle Ryan? She asked quietly. Yes, sweetie. They wanted to talk to us, but they didn't call first or ask permission to visit. That's not okay. Lily considered this. They sounded really mad. They're upset because I've asked them to give us some space, I explained, sitting beside her. Sometimes grown-ups don't handle big feelings very well, like when Tyler has a tantrum. Despite everything, I smiled. A bit like that, yes. Later that evening, as I was tucking Lily into bed, my phone rang, Ryan's number. My first instinct was to ignore it, but something made me answer. What do you want, Ryan? I want to talk, he said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. Just talk. No, Mom, no drama. I've heard that before. I know you have no reason to trust me, he admitted. But those security cameras, what they showed. He trailed off. What about them? Mom was different once you weren't there. The things she said, the way she acted. I've never seen her like that. I wanted to point out that she'd always been like that. He just hadn't been the target before. But I held back. What exactly do you want, Ryan? Coffee, neutral ground, just us. Please, Heather. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him the following morning at a cafe near his office. I arranged for Lily to have a playdate with a school friend, not wanting to leave her with a sitter in case this was some kind of trap. Ryan was already there when I arrived, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. The confident corporate executive was gone, replaced by someone who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Thank you for coming, he said as I sat down across from him. I'm not staying long, I replied. Say what you need to say. Ryan stared into his coffee cup. Jessica and I have been having problems. He began surprising me with this personal admission. For a while now, she says I'm too controlling, that I don't respect her opinions or feelings. I waited, unsure where this was going. Last night, after what happened at your house, we had a huge fight, she said. He paused, visibly uncomfortable. She said, I'm turning into mom. Ryan. Let me finish, he interrupted. Jessica told me she's been uncomfortable with how mom treats Lily for years, but was afraid to say anything because of how I always defend mom. She said if I couldn't see what was happening, she wasn't sure she wanted to stay married to me. I sat back stunned. Jessica had always seemed so perfectly aligned with Barbara and Ryan. The thing is, Ryan continued watching those security videos, seeing mom when she thought no one was looking. It was like seeing someone else, and then Jessica started pointing out patterns I'd never noticed before. Things mom has done over the years, ways she's manipulated situations. She's been doing it our whole lives, Ryan. He nodded slowly. I'm starting to see that. And I'm starting to wonder what else I've been blind to. Why are you telling me this? Because I owe you an apology, he said, meeting my eyes for the first time. I didn't believe you. I thought you were exaggerating, being dramatic. I was wrong. It wasn't a complete admission. He wasn't fully acknowledging Barbara's behavior or his role in enabling it. But it was a crack in the facade, a first step. What happens now? I asked. I don't know, Ryan admitted. Mom's furious about the police. She wants to pursue grandparents' rights, get a lawyer involved. That would be a mistake, I said firmly. I have documentation, Ryan. The security footage, the CPS report, the workplace harassment, none of it will look good in court. Ryan winced. I told her as much. She didn't take it well. We parted with no promises or plans, just a tentative acknowledgement that perhaps the family narrative needed re-examination. It was more than I'd expected, but less than I needed to feel safe opening our lives to them again. The true test came 3 weeks later at Thanksgiving. Aunt Susan had offered to host, creating neutral territory for a potential family reconciliation. After much consideration and consultation with Dr. Peterson, I decided Lily and I would attend, but with safeguards in place. Rachel would come with us for moral support, and I invited my father as well, knowing his presence would throw Barbara off balance. Arriving at Susan's house with Lily, Rachel, and my father beside me felt like entering a battlefield with armor. Barbara's face when she saw my father walk through the door was a study in shock and fury, quickly masked by her social persona. Michael, she said tightly. What a surprise. Barbara, he replied with a calmness I envied. It's been a long time. The early part of the gathering was strained but civil. Lily stayed close to me, occasionally venturing to play with Tyler under my watchful eye. Ryan and Jessica maintained a careful distance from Barbara, their own tension visible in sidelong glances and clipped responses. It was during dessert that the facade finally cracked completely. Barbara had been drinking more than usual, her cheeks flushed, her movements increasingly uncoordinated. When Susan mentioned what a nice job I'd done helping Lily make a pie, Barbara snorted. Yes, let's all praise Heather for managing the basic tasks of motherhood. Such an achievement. The table fell silent. Mom, Ryan warned quietly. What Barbara demanded. Are we all just going to pretend everything's fine, that she didn't try to destroy this family? Barbara Susan interjected, This isn't the time. When is the time? Barbara's voice rose. When my own granddaughter doesn't even know who I am anymore. When my son's marriage is falling apart because of her accusations. That's enough, I said firmly. Lily, why don't you and Tyler go play upstairs for a little while? Once the children were out of earshot, I turned back to Barbara. I didn't try to destroy this family. I tried to protect my daughter from your manipulation and cruelty. Cruelty? Barbara laughed bitterly. I have done nothing but love that child. You deliberately excluded her at Tyler's birthday party, I stated calmly. You've consistently favored Tyler over her. You've tried to turn her against me. You showed up at her school without permission. You called CPS with false allegations. You tried to get me fired from my job. With each accusation, Barbara's face grew redder. Lies. All lies. We have the security footage, Mom Ryan said quietly. From Heather's house. I saw how you acted when you thought no one was watching. Barbara turned to Ryan, betrayal written across her features. You're taking her side now. This isn't about sides, Ryan replied. It's about acknowledging the truth. The truth, Barbara laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. The truth is that Heather has always been jealous of you, Ryan. Jealous of our relationship. She couldn't stand that you were the successful one, the one who made good choices. So she's trying to turn everyone against me out of spite. Barbara, my father interjected, that's not fair to Heather and you know it. Stay out of this, Barbara snapped. You lost the right to an opinion when you abandoned your family. He didn't abandon us, I said. You drove him away just like you're driving everyone else away now. Barbara stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I will not sit here and be attacked in front of the entire family. No one is attacking you, Mom, Ryan said, his voice strained. We're trying to have an honest conversation. Honest, Barbara's laugh was brittle. You want honesty. Fine. Heather has always been difficult. Always been the problem child. And now she's turning Lily into the same kind of manipulative, attention-seeking. Don't you dare, I cut her off, rising to my feet. Don't you dare say another word about my daughter. The room fell silent as Barbara and I faced each other across the table. In that moment, I saw her clearly. Not as the all-powerful matriarch who had dominated our family for decades, but as a deeply insecure woman whose control was slipping away. You can't keep Lily from me, Barbara, finally said, her voice dangerously quiet. I'll take you to court. I'll fight you every step of the way. You'll lose, I replied simply. Every manipulation, every lie, every attempt to hurt us, it's all documented now. Do you really want a judge to see all of that? Before Barbara could respond, she swayed slightly, pressing a hand to her chest. I don't feel well, she murmured, her face suddenly pale. My chest. It hurts. Ryan was at her side immediately. Mom, do you need to sit down? For a moment, genuine concern flashed through me. Was she actually having a heart problem? But then I caught the calculating glance she cast around the table, gauging reactions, and I knew. This was her final play. A medical emergency to regain sympathy and control. Should I call an ambulance? Susan asked, half rising from her chair. Yes, Ryan exclaimed. She might be having a heart attack. She's not having a heart attack, I said quietly. All eyes turned to me. What? Ryan demanded. How could you possibly know that? Because this is what she does, I replied. When she's losing control, when she's been confronted, she creates a crisis to make herself the victim again. Dad, you've seen this before, haven't you? My father nodded slowly. Many times. Barbara's symptoms miraculously stabilized as attention shifted away from her performance. How dare you, she hissed. My own children accusing me of faking illness. Mom, Ryan said, his voice gentle but firm. If you're really feeling unwell, we should go to the emergency room right now. Barbara faltered, caught in her own trap. I think I just need to lie down for a bit. As Ryan helped Barbara to Susan's guest room, the tension in the dining room deflated. Jessica met my eyes across the table, a silent acknowledgement passing between us. My father squeezed my hand. Rachel, who had witnessed the entire meltdown in stunned silence, whispered, "That was incredible." When Ryan returned, his expression was somber. "She's resting," he reported, and furious. "I'm sorry, Ryan," I said sincerely. "I know this is hard for you too." He nodded, running a hand through his hair. "Jessica and I have been talking a lot lately. about mom, about family dynamics, about how things have always been versus how they could be. He hesitated. I don't know what happens next, but I know I can't keep pretending everything is fine. As we prepared to leave, Barbara emerged from the guest room composed once more. She didn't speak to me directly, but I caught her watching as Lily hugged Tyler goodbye, something unreadable in her expression. For the first time, I felt something other than fear or anger when looking at my mother. I felt pity. "Ready to go?" Rachel asked quietly. I nodded, gathering our things. "More than ready." As we drove away, Lily waved at the house from the back seat window. "That was weird," she declared with 8-year-old directness. "But I'm glad I got to play with Tyler again." "Me too, sweetie," I replied, catching Rachel's eye with a small smile. "Me too." 6 months after the Thanksgiving showdown, Lily and I stood on Ryan and Jessica's front porch, a brightly wrapped present in Lily's hands. "Do you think Tyler will like it?" Lily asked nervously, shifting the gift from one hand to the other. "The new Minecraft Lego set, I think he'll love it," I assured her, ringing the doorbell. The door swung open to reveal Tyler, his face lighting up at the sight of his cousin. "Lily, Mom, Dad, Lily's here," he shouted over his shoulder before grabbing Lily's hand. "Come see what I got for my birthday already." As the kids disappeared into the house, Jessica appeared in the doorway, smiling warmly. "Thanks for coming, Heather. It means a lot to Tyler. And to us." The past 6 months had brought significant changes to our family dynamics. After Thanksgiving, Ryan and Jessica had entered couples counseling, working through the strain Barbara's influence had placed on their marriage. Ryan had begun his own therapy journey, slowly coming to terms with the family patterns he'd been both victim of and participant in. Our cautious reconciliation had started with small steps: text messages, brief phone calls, carefully planned playdates between the cousins in neutral locations. This birthday gathering for Tyler, smaller and more intimate than last year's party, marked a significant milestone in our healing process. "Is she coming?" I asked Jessica quietly as we moved into the kitchen. Jessica shook her head. "No. We told her she could come tomorrow for a separate celebration if she can follow the boundaries we set." She lowered her voice. "She's still refusing therapy, but at least she's agreed to supervised visits only." Barbara's final defeat had come not through legal action or dramatic confrontations, but through the steady erosion of her control. When Ryan and Jessica had joined forces with me in setting firm boundaries, she'd found herself with an impossible choice: adapt or lose access to both grandchildren. Her attempts to play us against each other no longer worked when we compared notes and presented a united front. She was still Barbara, still manipulative, still self-centered, but her power had been fundamentally diminished. She was attending therapy now not because she believed she needed it, but because it was a non-negotiable condition of seeing her grandchildren. Progress was slow and inconsistent, but it was progress nonetheless. "How's Lily doing with everything?" Jessica asked, as we prepared snacks for the kids. "Much better," I replied. "Dr. Peterson says she's showing remarkable resilience. The nightmares have stopped completely. She still gets anxious sometimes about seeing Barbara, but we're working through it." "And you, how are you doing?" I considered the question carefully. "I'm healing." Setting boundaries with Barbara was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most necessary. Ryan entered the kitchen, then carrying a stack of paper plates. The tension that had once characterized our interactions had gradually softened into something approaching the sibling relationship we should have had all along. "Dad called," he said. "He's running about 10 minutes late." My father's return to our lives had been yet another unexpected blessing from this painful journey. He and I spoke weekly, now rebuilding our relationship, one conversation at a time. He'd become a steady, supportive presence for Lily, making up for lost time with bedtime stories over video chat and monthly visits. "Rachel's coming too, right?" Jessica asked, arranging cupcakes on a platter. "She'll be here soon," I confirmed, smiling at how seamlessly Rachel had been incorporated into our family gatherings. Her unwavering support through the darkest moments had cemented her role not just as my friend, but as part of our extended family circle. As we moved to the backyard where Tyler was showing Lily his new bike, I felt a moment of quiet gratitude. This birthday gathering was everything the last one should have been. Warm, relaxed, free from manipulation and hidden agendas. "You okay?" Ryan asked, noticing my thoughtful expression. "Just thinking about how different this is from last year," I replied. Ryan winced slightly. "I'm still sorry about that. I should have seen what was happening. We were all trained not to see it, Ryan. That was the whole point." He nodded, understanding what I meant without further explanation. "Aunt Susan called yesterday," he said, changing the subject. "She's planning a small family reunion in July, just the healthy branches of the family tree, as she puts it." I laughed. Susan had become our family's unexpected anchor, providing perspective and wisdom born from her own journey of setting boundaries with Barbara, decades earlier. The afternoon unfolded in a way that once seemed impossible, with genuine warmth and enjoyment. When it came time for cake, I watched carefully as Jessica served each child, including Lily, with equal pieces and equal love. The contrast with last year's deliberate exclusion couldn't have been starker. "Make-a-wish," we all chorused as Tyler blew out his candles. Later, as the party wound down, Ryan pulled me aside. "I have something for you," he said, handing me a small envelope. "It's not much, but..." Inside was a card with a simple message. "Thank you for not giving up on us. Love, Ryan, Jessica, and Tyler. You stood your ground when it would have been easier not to," Ryan said quietly. "You forced all of us to face some uncomfortable truths. It hurt like hell, but our family is healthier because of it." 6 weeks later, it was Lily's turn to celebrate her birthday. We kept it simple. A backyard party with school friends Rachel, my father Ryan, Jessica, and Tyler. And in perhaps the most significant step in our family's healing journey, Barbara was invited for a brief supervised visit. She arrived precisely on time, bearing a modestly wrapped gift rather than the extravagant presents she'd once used as manipulation tools. I watched carefully as she greeted Lily, noting the restraint in her manner, the absence of the passive-aggressive comments that had once been her trademark. "Happy birthday, Lily," she said, handing over the present. "I hope you like it." "Thank you, Grandma," Lily replied, polite but cautious. Barbara turned to me. "The yard looks lovely, Heather. You've done a wonderful job with the decorations." A compliment without a hidden barb. Small progress, but progress nonetheless. When it came time for cake, I found myself at the serving table, knife in hand, Barbara standing nearby. Our eyes met briefly as I cut the first slice and placed it on a plate. "Lily, here's your piece," I called, handing my daughter the first serving of cake. Then I cut a second slice, and after the briefest hesitation, held it out to Barbara. "Mom." She accepted it with a nod, the gesture carrying more weight than either of us acknowledged out loud. As the party continued around us, I took a moment to reflect on our journey. The path to healing wasn't complete. Perhaps it never would be entirely. Barbara would always be Barbara. The patterns of a lifetime couldn't be undone in a matter of months. But the toxic cycle had been broken. Lily would grow up in a healthier environment than I had, aware of boundaries and their importance, surrounded by people who respected and protected her well-being. That evening, after all the guests had left and Lily was in bed, surrounded by her new gifts, I sat on the porch swing, watching fireflies begin to appear in the gathering dusk. The past year had been the hardest of my life, but also the most transformative. I had discovered strength, I never knew I possessed rebuilt relationships I thought were forever damaged and established boundaries that would protect both Lily and myself going forward. Standing up for Lily had ultimately taught me to stand up for myself as well. In protecting her, I had finally learned how to protect the wounded child inside me, who had always craved Barbara's unconditional love and approval. Some relationships can't be fixed. They can only be managed. With Barbara, I had accepted that reality and found peace in the limits and boundaries that now defined our interaction. It wasn't the happy ending of fairy tales, but it was real, sustainable, and infinitely healthier than what had come before. As the first stars appeared in the evening sky, I made a silent promise to myself and to Lily. The cycles of manipulation and emotional abuse that had defined our family for generations would end with us. We would write a new story, one built on respect, honesty, and genuine love. And that, I realized with quiet certainty, was the greatest gift I could ever give my daughter. What about you? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members to protect yourself or your children? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to stand up for themselves and their children. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the family we choose is healthier than the family we're born into. Take care of yourselves and each other.